President Trump said that he would release a new set of guidelines today, talking about reopening the country. He held calls yesterday with business leaders from across the country. Eamon Javers joins us right now. He's got more on that front and some of the controversy that kicked up too, Eamon.
Yeah, good morning, Becky. The president's been toggling back and forth during the course of the week of how this is actually going to go. Earlier in the week, he suggested he had the total authority to order the government to reopen, the economy to reopen throughout the country. Then he rolled back on that and said, well, actually, it's going to be up to the governors. Then yesterday, he said that he's going to make an announcement today about how all of this is going to happen. We do expect that the governors will get some heads up first from the White House about what the plan is. Here's what the president said yesterday in the Rose Garden.
We'll be opening up states, some states much sooner than others. And we think some of the states can actually open up before the deadline of May 1st. And I think that that will be a very exciting time indeed. Governors are looking forward. They're chomping at the bit to get going.
So, Becky, we don't have a lot of indication about what the White House plan is at this point. We do know that the president's got a conference call scheduled with governors in the 3 p.m. hour East Coast time this afternoon. And after that, he's got that 5 p.m. press briefing. So you can expect that he'll roll this out to the governors at 3, roll it out to the public at 5. That seems like what the unveiling plan is going to be. But of course, with the White House, you never quite know for sure. No indication from the White House exactly what their plan is, but they did talk to quite a few CEOs and executives of businesses across the country yesterday in a series of conference calls with those business leaders to get ideas on what to do here. So they're taking input from a lot of different sources here, Becky, and we'll see what they unveil during the course of the day today.
I'm glad they're talking to a lot of different sources and a lot of different people with opinions on these things. I think a lot of what happened from the business leaders is them saying they'd like to see more effective testing so that they can tell their people to come back with confidence. That makes sense. You start hearing about some of the tests and just the number of false positives and the number of false negatives that are given, and it does raise some questions just about how effective that testing is going to be, how quickly you can get it out to lots of places. But, Eamon, I don't know if you saw, there were marches, I think, on Lansing, Michigan yesterday, where there are 3 counties in Michigan where there's an incredibly high percentage of the state's actual cases. The other parts of the state want to be opened up again. They don't want to be held back. And I think you're going to see more and more of this push and pull that kind of plays out across the country as states that have been hit more hard or counties that have been hit more hard by this coronavirus kind of come up against those areas that haven't seen quite as much of an impact.
Yeah, look, and we've seen this wide disparity in impact. You know, a lot of it has to do with density, use of public transportation, how early in their cycle they were able to get the lockdown in place, all of that affecting different counties across the country in different ways. But you wonder what happens if you lift this in some counties and then you have people traveling from those more highly infected counties to the lower infected counties. You could see that spread happen again. You know, I was talking to one business leader last week who had a fascinating idea, which was, you know, how to get your office space secure so that you can actually get your workforce back into the office. And one of the ideas he was talking about is just simply testing everybody every time they go into the office and creating a sort of secure space within the office in which everything has been disinfected, everybody in that space has been tested before walking into it, and then the test becomes almost like the new metal detector. You test every time you go in. He said to get to that, we need a massive, massive increase in testing capability in this country and the speed of that test. But once you do that, you could have a situation where you have secure offices and get people back to work again. It seems, though, that we are a long way away from any kind of capability like that, Becky.
Yeah, and just talking about what happens when it's done on a county-by-county basis, probably the most telling picture of that was in Florida when some counties had shut the beaches, others hadn't. You saw that picture of an empty beach butted up against a very crowded beach. And, yeah, it's hard to control, but you can also understand how people get upset because they're being forced in even when there's not a huge number of cases in their county. I mean, it just seems like it's going to be more and more of a push, and unfortunately it does fall down red and blue lines. A lot of the blue lines, blue states, blue areas are the ones where they're the most tightly congested. You have subways, you have people living on top of each other, and that's the place where this spreads the most rapidly.
Yeah, density seems to be the key here. And then, you know, you look at how this plays in our politics. You talk about the red-blue divide. You also look at the state divide, right? I mean, a state like Florida and some of those swing states, you know, if there is a big outbreak in Florida and the president is perceived as doing badly there, that could really affect his chances for the presidency. But the flip side is, if they're able to mitigate this and they don't see that kind of big spread, and the president is seen as having really successfully handled this in some of those swing states, that'll make a huge difference in the presidential election as well. I mean, I think that so much of our economy depends on this, so much of our government depends on this, and our politics are really impacted by this. I mean, this is the driving force in our lives in just about every sphere right now. It's amazing to watch. It's stunning. It's something that we didn't even really contemplate at the beginning of the year is now driving just about every facet of American life.